I'm just going to open up idle and create a file that's a data file. It's got some numbers in it. Why don't we do that? All right. It can just be one number. It can be multiple numbers. We're going to make it ignore things that begin with a hash symbol. You know, otherwise, if it tried to turn that into numbers, that'd be a syntax error. That's enough. Hey, let's make it ignore blank lines too. Alrighty. I'm just going to save this as data.py. I'm going to save it in my favorite directory where my scripts reside. I could call it data.txt, but if I'm going to call it .txt, I need to change this save as type to txt as well. I think I'll do that. All right, so that's my data. I'm going to make a new file that's actually going to be my script. So let's figure out the outline that we're going to do. We're going to ask for the file name. I'm just going to hard code it to data.txt so that I don't have to keep typing it in every time I do something. All right. Now we need to open that file. File equals open file name. Can I type? File name, comma. Let's open it for reading. And here's how you step through a file line by line. For variable, you know, we could call it V for line, whatever. In file, firstly, just to make sure this is working, let's just print that line. And then we're going to close the file, and we'll be done. Right, this is obviously not the solution, but, you know, it's a start. We open the file, we print all the data in it. Good start. I have no idea what lecture we're on, elemental P, maybe Q. Guess we could find out. Yep. All right. Lecture Q. Oh, come on. All right, I'm going to run it, see what it does. All right. Well, obviously close is not how to do it. I missed that question on the exam, clearly. Let's modify that. But anyways, it did open the file, and it did print out all the data. Notice one thing, it printed out blank lines between everything. We kind of like to fix that. We don't want a blank line there and a blank line there. We only had one blank line in our output. The problem is it's reading it, and it's also including the \n at the end of the file. Right, y'all know what the \n does. If I do something like this, you know, don't type this. Whoopsie. Let me close the shell and relaunch it. You know, print hi \, oh, come on. My fingers have gone to sleep. Hi \n. Goodbye. Right? We know what the \n does. It goes to the next line, just like hitting the enter key, just like hitting the return key. So when it reads in a line of data from here, we don't see the \n, but there is one. ASCII character 10 or 14 or something like that. If we looked at the ASCII table or used hexedit, you know, hexed.it to look at it, we'd see those line feed characters. So we're going to manipulate the data a little bit. We want to strip any \n's from the end of it. And we also want to make sure that it doesn't begin with any pound signs and that we don't have any blank lines. So the first thing let's do is just strip it of the \n. Fortunately, there's a strip command. So we're going to do line is equal to line dot strip. Now strip takes the spaces and the backslash n's away from the end of the file, excuse me, the end of the line and also the beginning of the line. Maybe we don't want to strip the beginning of the line, in which case we just want to do the end of the line, which is the right side of it, so we would do rstrip. And this is not closed file, it is file.close. Need to fix that. I need to change the order though, right? Because I'm not going to print the line and then strip it. I need to put the print statement underneath it. So I'm going to highlight the print statement, come down here, paste it, and then I'm going to run it. Looks a little bit better. There's no blank lines between it, except for the one which is in the data. I'd like to ignore it if it begins with a hash symbol, and I'd like to ignore it if its length is 0. Okay, how do we check to see if the first character, did I just close the file accidentally? How do we check to see if the first character of something is equal to something, right? How do we check to see if line begins with a pound sign?
Starts with.
Yeah, starts with is a great way. There's actually 2 ways you can do it, but one way would crash. I'll show you the way that would crash. If line subscript 0 is equal to pound sign. The reason that would crash is what if the line is empty after we stripped it? If the line is empty, then there is no element 0, and that would blow up. So we probably ought to check to make sure that the line is not empty. We will do that, but starts with is the way to go. If line dot starts with a pound sign, then just continue. Don't do anything else. We don't care. We're not going to print the data out, nothing. Remember what continue does? It forces a reiteration of the loop. It just goes back up to the top of the loop and keeps running. Skips everything after that. Just like a break statement jumps at the end of the loop, continue jumps to the beginning. Alrighty, that will ignore the hash. Let's run it and make sure that's true. Okay, good. It's gone. But we still have a blank line. I don't want to see a blank line. That's kind of tacky. How do we get the length of a line or a list? Just like one of the test questions was something like if length of name is greater than 10, right? How do I get the length of name?
Would be if length of line.
Yeah, it'd be if length, but not, it's actually just len. And I know you know that, but a lot of people type length. So there we go, if len, what am I doing there? If len line is equal to 0, that means there's no data in it, and we should continue. All right, I'm going to run it again. Make sure it's not printing out any hashes. Make sure it's not printing out any blank line. Okay, great. All that's left to do is to convert these into lists and to convert the lists into lists of numbers because they're strings right now. They look like numbers, but they're strings, so we can't add them together. So if I have a string and I want to split it up into a list, then I have a dot split function I can call. Line equals line dot split, and I need to say what to split it by, which in this case is by spaces. If it was separated by commas, I would put a comma there instead. All right, we're 4/5 of the way through here. There we go. Oh, look at that. There's some garbage here. That's because I have multiple spaces in there. Now, honestly, off the top of my head, I don't remember how to split based on both commas and spaces. All right, I can change my data to fix it. That's probably the easiest thing to do. or I can make a new list that if it was an empty string, it would leave those elements out. All right. Let me see my homework assignment. Did I have extra spaces in my homework assignment? Yeah, I did. So I ought to make it handle that. But I'm going to hope the professor doesn't notice if I remove the extra spaces from my data. And you're allowed to do that. You can text me and say, hey, is that okay? And I'll go, yeah, that's okay. Because sure, you could Google up a way to do it. There we go. Now to work. Maybe I didn't leave that on the screen long enough for you to see what was happening. But when I ran it with the spaces, see, we got empty list entries because it tried to separate by spaces, and then it treated the multiple spaces. So there is a way to fix that using something called regular expressions, or we can just fix the data. I'm going to do that. That's what I did, is I went to my data file and I removed the extra spaces. Cleaned my data a little bit. Now, if I was going to clean my data, why not delete the blank line? But anyways. All right. I'm going to run it, make sure that there's no blank entries in my list. Very good. We're 80% of the way there. What's the last thing to do? To convert these to numbers. I'll show you a long way of doing it. You don't have to type this because the next thing I'm going to do is show you the short way. I'm going to make a new list that's empty, and then I'm going to go through the old list for value and line, colon, add that to my list. New equals, you know, is it new.append or new.add? I never remembered. All right, and there we go. Now I have a new list. Well, I haven't done that. I need to convert it to an int, right, like that. That's how to do it with a for loop. Now, list comprehension is actually shorter syntax, in my opinion, but that would work. Doesn't look like it worked, but that's because I am printing out the original list, not my new list. So I could do this to fix that. Underneath it, I could do line is equal, and like I said, I'm going to change this. Maybe I'll just comment it out. Line is equal to new, right? Because I want this to be back in the original variable. And now when it prints it out, they're all numbers. We know that they're numbers because there's no quotes around it, unlike that. Okay, that's how to do it with a for loop. But that took 4 lines. I don't want to do it with 4 lines. I want to do it with 1. Here's what this would look like. Line equals, and then I use the square braces to indicate I'm building a list, int x for x in line. So for every, or I should put value to make it look exactly the same. Int value for value in line. I hope, oops, valley. I hope you can see why these are the exact same lines of code. This is a for loop for value in line, just like this one. And this converts that value into an int, just like that one does. And we didn't have to append it because this is building the list. We know it's building a list because it's between square braces. Alrighty, there we go. We have a cute little array. It could print out the sum. It could print out the average of each line. Excuse me, I called it an array. We have a cute series of lists, 1 per line, and we could calculate the sum of each line, and we could calculate the average. You'd put that here before we print out the line. All right. Total is equal to the sum of the line. Average is equal to the total divided by the length of the line, right? If it's 4 elements long, we're going to divide by 4. Now, when you call len and you pass in a string, it counts how long the string is, right? You know, so if you pass in len of, you know, Fred, it's going to return 4. But if you pass in a list, it counts how many elements there are, and it doesn't matter how long each element is. It just counts how many there are. So in our data here, some of the elements will be 1 long, right? That's 1 long. That list is 2 long. That list is 3 long. And now we should print out, the average and the sum. Line, comma, total, comma, average. Now this is lousy output. You ought to tell me that one of these lines is the total and the other lines is the average. You ought to make your output prettier than I did here. But I'm not going to do the whole assignment for you. I'm just going to do 95% of it. So there we go, right? This is the total, and that's the average. That's the total of those 2 values, that's the average. That's the total of those 3 values, that's the average. Okay, like I said, this is really lame output. It's not showing you, which value is which. We could space them out, right, so that they were all in columns, or we could just use words. Total equals percent, D, comma, average equals percent F, something like that. But that's enough. That's enough to show you how to get the assignment done. What's missing from our solution? Well, I didn't ask for the file name. The program wants you to ask for the file name, and the output is really ugly. All right. So if you've already done the assignment, but you want to modify it based on this, hey, that's totally cool. Just upload it again. Just submit it again. If you haven't done the assignment, boom, you're 98% of the way there. You just got to do that, and you just got to do that. See if I can get the whole thing. Well, at least the whole for loop on one page. I'm not going to be able to get the whole thing on one page and still keep it readable unless I deleted this stuff. So temporarily, I'm going to delete that stuff. All right, that's our solution. Pause the recording if you need to take a look at it. Then I'm going to undo my delete so that our little for loop is there, because I want you to be able to compare and contrast the list comprehension with how you do it with a for loop. Alrighty, so what's the takeaway? The takeaway is this is how you open a file for reading. If you're going to open it for writing, you do something a little bit different. You open it with a W. If it's open for reading, you can process it line by line with a for loop, just like this. So instead of for X in range, whatever, or for X for value in list, you just do for variable in file. Now, is this variable important? Is this variable name important? No, this could have been, don't type this. This could have been called Fred, right? Variable names are not important unless I specify in an exam question that I want a specific variable name, in which case it is important and you get counted off for not using the variable name that I specified. Speaking of which, firstly, anybody need eyeballs on your screen because you're getting syntax errors? We all good? All right. Speaking of which, we're going to do a quiz, but we're going to all do it together, consisting of the most commonly missed questions on the last few quizzes in exam. So let me go publish it so that everybody can see it. We're just going to all do it together. And you folks at home, feel free to copy along, right? That's what we're going to be doing in here. Don't tell me it's gone. Okay, there he is. All right, this one's pretty much all fill in the blank because it's all writing little bits of code pretty much. But it won't be too much. Okay, so if you go to your quiz page, refresh it if you need to. Down here underneath the exam, there should be something called chapters 5 and 6 one more time. I'm going to preview it because I can't actually take it. I wish I could, because then I could check to make sure it grades correctly. Alrighty, not like anybody can read that. Let me see if I can fumble with this just a little bit to make it easier to read. Alright, everybody in? Alright, write a function that matches these requirements. The name of the function is half, the parameter is x, and it returns x times 2. Alright, a lot of y'all know how to do this, but judging from the exams, a lot of people stumbled on it too. So, I'm going to write the function. That means I'm going to use a DEF statement. I give you the name of the function. I tell you what the parameter is supposed to be. And then I tell you what it's supposed to return, x divided by 2. So return x divided by 2. And that's the solution for that. Now on the exam, they were maybe a little bit wordier. Maybe next time I give the exam or on the final and I have you do this, maybe I'll just boil it down to a pure skeleton of a question like that. Maybe that would make it easier. All right, say you have a list variable called zoo. Write a loop that will print the elements of the zoo list. There's two ways to do this. There's the easy way and there's a slightly less easy way, but it's still not horribly complex. Now in this case, we don't need a def. We don't need anything. We just need to make a list variable. So zoo, and we know how to create lists. We use square brackets. But I didn't ask to create a list variable. See, I've already failed my own exam. Say you have a list variable, write a loop that will print the elements. Okay, now I could make the list variable myself, just see it here. And on the exam, I actually showed you the contents of the variables of the list before I asked you to print them. But here's the question, write a loop that will print the elements. So for, and I don't give you a variable name, but if I did, I would want you to make it, right? If I said call your loop variable x, well, I didn't specify. So value or I, perfect variable names, either one. So for value in list, so the name of our list is zoo, print the value. That's the easy way. That's the shortest way. There's a slightly longer way. I'm going to show you the syntax for that too. You don't have to do both of them. This is using an index value. If I'm doing an index, I'd rather call it something else other than value, like I or something like that. So since this is an index-based loop, meaning that we're going to be printing, don't type this, we're going to be printing out things like zoo1, zoo2, zoo3, I want to call it I. So for I in zoo, colon, but that's wrong, I need to count from 0 up to the list, the range, the length of zoo. So for I in range, len zoo, like that. And then print zoo subscript I. The first one's easier, but they both work. Here we're using an index value to reference each element of the list, and here we're just stepping through it by the values of the list itself. Now if you kind of mix those up, if you put, you know, both one and then the other, like, I don't know. You could have done this and it would have been wrong. Print, you know, zoo value, you know, or something like that. That's not going to work because this is the values in the list. This is the index. So use one or the other, not both. Write a loop that'll print the values between 1 and 50. Lots and lots and lots of people did a for x in range 1 and 50. What does that really need to be?
151.
It's got to go up to 51, and that looks stupid, and I'm sorry, I didn't invent the language. This specifies one pass where you want to stop. If you make it 150, it'll only count to 49. So, you got to make it 51. And then just put some kind of print statement, right? And if I'd specified a loop variable name, a loop variable name, you'd want to make it match that. But I didn't, so you can feel free to call it anything you want. X, Fred, whatever. All right, if you have a function called times 10, write a line of code that passes a function, passing in the value 2 as the argument. Here's what I got most often. I didn't ask you to define the function. This wouldn't compile anyways. I asked you to call the function. So, and I forgot to specify the return value of it. So, if you were going to write the question, the answer for this, and go exactly by what I said, then I guess you wouldn't have a return value. That was a mistake in me making the quiz too much. But the name of the function is times 10, and the value that we're passing in is 2. Now, the rest of the question should have said something like, store the result in a variable named z, right? It would have said something like that on the exam, in which case you'd do that. Don't get the variable name wrong. If I tell you a variable name, use that variable name. Read the whole question. Look for what I wanted you to store it as. Right? So if I say stored in z, but you put numbers there or volume or something like that, then you don't quite get full credit. You get partial credit. I'm not a total jerk. Anyway, since this didn't ask for a variable name, I wouldn't have counted off whether you put a variable name or not. The questions on the exams and quizzes did ask for variable names, so you would want to put whatever I specified, if I specified one. Either way, right? Since this matches the question exactly, I'm just going to put that there. Write a line of code that declares a list variable. The name of the variable is zoo. The list should be a list of 4 animals. Now I'll give you the variable name. So don't make up one. Don't go animals is equal to something. Go by what the variable is called. You get the idea. I'm hammering the same point in over and over because I saw this. People miss lots of points by not giving the variable name that I specify. So it needs to be a list of 4 animals. Okay, I'm going to go to the zoo, and when I took my nephew to the zoo, he asked to see the dinosaurs. So dinosaurs, lions, dogs, and snakes. There we go. Lots of good zoo animals. Kind of lame. Put your own animals. I don't care. All right, lots and lots and lots of people miss the questions like this. So many that I need to go see if more than 50% of the class miss these, because I tend to throw out the questions that more than half the class miss. And what's going on here? X is 10, Y is 4, Z is equal to X plus X slash Y. Slash means floor division, which means divide and round down. So what's 10 divided by 4 rounded down? 2. So Z should equal to X, which is 10, plus 2. So the answer should be 12. And if you typed a little bit more, like Z equals 12, yeah, whatever. Here's what got you a big fat 0 on the question. Z equals X plus, right. No, I wanted you to figure it out. And I think that the way the question was worded, it told you to go ahead and do the calculation in your head. Don't just tell me that. Now the alternate way that I worded these on another one is something like this. X is equal to 10, Y is equal to 4, Z is equal to, or you know, I could even do this. X plus equals X divided by 4. Now maybe that looks harder, but all this means is X equals X plus that. Same idea. So if you see X plus equals, it just means X equals X plus. Same deal. This means the same thing as X plus equals. X divided by Y. So with that in mind, what is X plus X divided by Y? It's 12. Again, so it would have been 12. A lot of people did not add it. They just saw this part and they went 2, right? Because that is equal to 2. They skipped that part, especially when it had the x plus equals part. All right, so write a line of code that will print the first and the last elements of a list, except I think on the exam it was string. Same exact idea. The list variable name is numbers. All right, there's an easy way and then there's a slightly less easy way. But if you have a list, like remember that zoo list we had up here? And you want to get the first element, print zoo, don't go up and modify your code. There, that's the first element of the zoo list. If zoo was a string, that would give you the first letter in the string. Same thing. Strings and lists in this language are almost the exact same thing. Almost. Okay, and then the last one. Well, Python gives you a sneaky little way of getting the last one so that you don't have to write what I'm about to do here. You don't have to do zoo at len zoo minus 1 like that, right? That's the long way to do it. Instead, you'd want to do this. Zoo subscript 0 and then zoo subscript minus 1. That's the Python shortcut for printing the last element. Now, if you did something else, like you built a string that contained both of those values, cool. I'm sure I didn't counter after that. Okay, so back down here, the list variable name is numbers. So print numbers. What's the first element of the list? 0. What's the last element?
-1.
Right. Or len numbers minus 1. But this sure is easy to type, so I'm going to go with that. I haven't been saving my answers, but since y'all may as well submit them, get full credit, I'm sure. Now write a line of code that checks to see if the first element of the numbers array equals 72. All right, we know how to get the first element of the numbers array. If numbers, okay, now I'm going to give you some wrong answers. All right, what's wrong with that? I wanted you to write a line of code. This is kind of pseudocode, right? This would not compile. So, there. What's wrong with that? I think I heard it, but please repeat it more loudly. Yeah, we need 2 equal signs. Why? Because in this and almost every other programming language, if you're using an if statement, you've got to use 2 equal signs. So that would be a correct answer. And I'd rather see a colon at the end of it, especially if I wrote, be sure to put the colon at the end of it. Oh, I forgot the subscript. There, like that. Did I goof on anything else? Now that I'm staring at it. And if the question said remove all unnecessary spaces, that's just to help the autograder so that I don't have to go back in and give you a point for it missing it. I would ask for that. Those are unnecessary spaces. Howsoever, this is a necessary space.
Now, why is it 0 there? Yeah.
Why do we do that? Because the autograder looks for an exact match to the answer I enter in it.
Oh, no, I said 72. I mean 0.
Because it's the first element.
Oh, okay.
Right. I think in the test question it was just if x is equal to 4 or something like that. It didn't ask for a list element, but yeah. Okay, so don't remove necessary spaces. Here's another example. If I ask you to write a for loop that counts from 1 to 10, right, for x in range starting at 1 going up to but not including 10, comma 1, and then you saw my little message saying leave out spaces, even if I didn't put the words leave out spaces on this one, I had some people do that. Don't. I gave you credit for it, but don't do that. All right, let's go to the next. All righty, solve for volume. Implement this as a line of Python. Use the variable name pi to represent pi in the equation. Now, I don't think I counted anybody off if they used math.pi or 3.14 or something like that, but store the result in a variable named volume. All righty, so if you said v is equal to, I may have counted you off a little bit wrong if I asked for the variable name volume. Now, if you just went by rote about what you saw up here, I probably didn't ding you much, if anything. But here's what would get you counted off. Pi r to H. And maybe you cleaned it up by doing this. What's wrong with that? Kind of looks good. You could see this in a textbook written like that. It's not valid programming code, though. Not in this language or any other language I've used. What's wrong with it? We need to multiply. We can't leave out the times symbols, the multiply symbols, just because textbooks do and Google does when you ask for a formula. Can't leave those out. Now, something to note is that although you were probably taught that that means to the power of, it doesn't in these programming languages for some reason. In this programming language, you do that. Some programming languages don't even have a star star, in which case you use a POW function, a power of function. Anyways, that's correct. Don't leave out the stars, right? All right, here we go. Write a line of code that implements the following logic. If x modulus 10 equals 1. I got a lot of strange answers like x 10 equals 1. How about that one? What's wrong with that? Besides the fact, yeah, that's not modulus. That's floor division. So there's two things wrong with this one. One is that we need the correct operator. That's modulus. And since it's an if statement, we need that. And since I say remove unnecessary spaces, well, I don't have any unnecessary spaces. But don't forget the colon at the end. I'd appreciate it if you had the colon at the end, so I don't have. I do grade them by hand, so I'd go back and give you the point even if the auto grader marked it off. But it's nice to be able to scroll up past all the correct answers rather than to have to fix half of them. All right. I think that's the whole quiz. Any questions over what we did? Making sense? Hope so. All right. Yes, yes, ma'am.
Is it possible for me to go back down to 10?
You need to see what I did at the end?
Yes.
Okay, sure. Which part?
10.
Okay, yeah, there we go. And I hope we do remember what modulus means. Modulus means divide and take the remainder. So if x equaled 21 here, don't type this. If x equaled 21 there, 21 divided by 10 is 2, and what's the remainder? 1. So in this case, x modulus 10 would actually equal 1, and it would trigger whatever was inside the if statement. If x equaled 30, x divided by 10 is 3 with what remainder? None. It's divides cleanly into it. All righty.
I have an unrelated quiz question.
Yeah, sure.
My Python files on my desktop changed to something named WinPython. They show little alligators. What is that?
Do they still run when you double click them?
If I right click, I can't open. If I try to right click on it, it doesn't give me the option to open with idle. It says open with WinPython.
Ew.
I have to actually open up the.
You have to open idle and
Yeah,
then
and I actually have to
edit it
run
within there.
Open with.
Okay, so the question is if we go over here and we're looking at our Python files and they say, oh, where do all these .java files come from? If they say WinPython or something like that, maybe we could do this. Open with ... more apps, and there should be a browse. Look for another app on this PC. And if you go out and you find idle, then maybe you could find it. Now, it shouldn't have changed it like that. So I don't know what reconfigured it to do that. But that should be how you can change. Oh, look at that. Yeah, it's wanting to change that for me. If I clicked always use this app to open PY files, then presto, they're all changed to that, and it comes up with this funky thing. It didn't even run the app. So personally, I don't even know what Python Win is for if it doesn't run the app when I double click on it, right? Now how do I fix that? I'm going to need to find the path to idle. I don't know where idle is stored on this, so I've broken it. I would have to go and look for idle. Well, I can go in and type idle here, right click on it, and do open file location, and I ought to be able to get it there. Okay. So in that case, I would go back, right click, open with, more apps, look for another app on this PC, paste the path that I just copied from the other folder, choose idle, and hope it works. I done did something wrong. At that point, I go and I delete WinPython. All right, where is that anyways? Python win. What happens if I delete you? Oh, it didn't let me. Can I move it? Security on these things is too tight. I can't delete it. Okay, now that I've broken it, I don't know how to fix it, and I apologize for that. I always just go in and open the files from within idle. But really, honestly, idle should be one of the things listed here, but it's not on these PCs. It ought to be, you know, open with idle, and I'm not seeing it there. I don't know why. I should ask the IT guys down the hall. Alrighty, we almost have no more time. That's a drag. Let's go look to see if there's another assignment question that says, based on lecture on October from October. Well, there's one that I hit it. I decided that since we hadn't done the lecture, I wouldn't even do that. Do we have time for that? All right, here's what I want to do. Is we're going to use the turtle library to draw a bar graph. And I'm going to have to draw on the board, and I'm sorry for you guys. Well, I don't know, maybe I can do it with a paint program. The way I want it to work is, if you remember, a turtle is something that starts off drawing, but you can tell it to either go right a certain number of degrees or left a certain number of degrees. If I'm going to draw a bar graph, I'd want it to turn left, go up the height, turn right 90 degrees, go over the width, turn right again, go down there. And now maybe I want it to back up that far and then go forward again and then go forward there like that. And then repeat the process, you know. Turn right, go up a different height. Turn left, go the width. Turn left again, go the height, right? Because if that's H and this is W, right, then you're going to go the H 2 times, right? After you turn, you're going to go forward H. Then you're going to turn that way and go the width. You're going to turn down and go H again. And then maybe you'll back up to get past that, and then maybe you'll go forward, you know, the width of the spacer, whatever the spacer is, and then you'll repeat it for the next number. So I want to make a little function or something that'll do that, that'll draw a bar like that. And of course, it'd be fun to do that in Python. So now here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a little break here just to pause the screen. Press enter for bar graph. Right. We're not going to store the result. That's enough. Now we need to import the turtle library. Import turtle, and we need to make a new turtle. Yep, T is equal to turtle dot capital T turtle, parentheses in parentheses. Now I'm going to set a variable called SP for spacer because I want each one of my bars to be separated by 10 pixels. Alrighty. Now I need some series of values to step through. I don't know, sales equals, and I'm going to put some numbers in here. 30, 100, 10, 50, whatever, right? And I need a width. I want each bar to be a certain number of pixels wide. Alrighty, so we start off going due east. For some reason in Turtle World, 0 degrees is due east rather than due north. So now that we have a turtle, let's go forward the width of the spacer, t.fd, or the whole word forward, but it's easier just to type fd. Go the spacer. Now we're going to turn left. We want to turn left so that we're shooting straight up. T.left 90 degrees. And then T.forward, well, whoops, I don't know what my height is. This needs to be in a for loop. It needs to be stepping through the sales array in order to do all this. So I've kind of made a mistake. I need to come up here and add some code for my for loop. For value or for H, whatever I want to call my variable, in the sales list for H in sales. Now tab these guys over. I'm going to just add a comment. Drawing up. Now I want to close off the top of the bar, so I'm going to turn right 90 degrees. T.right 90. And then I'm going to go the width. T.width. Nope. T.forward again. T.forward parentheses width. All right, so now I'm up at the top of my bar, and I've drawn the width of it. I need to turn to the right again and go down. So T.forward, H, that takes me down.
You need to turn it first.
What'd I do wrong?
You turn it again. Otherwise you can add more to your width.
Yeah, you go forward width and then forward height. You gotta.
Yeah, you're right. Yep, that's dumb. So now I need to turn what direction? Left?
Right.
Yeah.
No, you turn to the right.
Do I? All right. Yeah, you're right. Okay. Now I'm drawing down. Once I've hit the bottom, I need to turn to the left again so that I'm pointing the right way. And then I'm going to draw the spacer. T.forward, spacer. And I think I'll put a comment here that says draw top of bar. Where's my graph? I done did something wrong.
Do you need to bring in like a canvas or something for Turtle? I can't remember the last time.
You should not have to, but yeah, you can create a canvas for the turtle to draw on. All right, let's go.
Yeah, I guess you don't have to.
Yeah, wn equals turtle.screen. Alex is equal to turtle.turtle. Alrighty. So yeah, that's probably what I missed. Is equal to. Okay, so underneath the line import turtle, we need to make our window, a canvas to paint on. wn is equal to turtle dot capital S screen. I kind of forgot that was necessary. Shame on me. Is it drawing it somewhere that I don't see?
At the bottom.
There it is, way down at the back. Okay, so it's drawing my bar graph. Now there's some dumbness involved, right? I'd kind of like it positioned way back here. And maybe I'd like the width to be based on, you know, how many bars we were going to draw, because if we were going to draw 10 bars, we wouldn't want them to be as wide as that. So we ought to put something that would back us up. Maybe we'd also like, you know, there to be, you know, a line there where we could go backwards to get that going, but then we'd have to go forward again. So before we draw our little spacer, let's go back and then forward again. And then maybe let's back up, I don't know, you know, 50 pixels or something to go back over there before we start drawing anything. All right, so before we even start drawing anything, as soon as we create our turtle, we're going to go back like 50 pixels. So t dot back 50. I just added that underneath the spacer equals 10. Anywhere before the for loop would work. Maybe I'll cut that and paste it right above the for loop. Now, I just arbitrarily picked 50. We could check the size of the window, or we could create the window to a specific size so that we knew exactly how wide it was. You know, we could try real hard to make it real nice. Okay, so before we draw our spacer, I'm going to back up the width, and then I'm going to go forward the width, right? So that I'm drawing a line along the bottom as well. Okay, so here, before we draw the spacer, t dot back h, and then t dot forward h. So I'm going to say draw bottom of bar, and then go back. I don't know how to phrase that to make it make absolute sense. I hate to say the word back when this is the one that said back, right? And then go forward to where we need to be. Okay. Well, apparently 50 pixels wasn't nearly enough. I'm going to make it like minus 200. And this is looking really lame here. I don't know what I did wrong there. It kind of worked in certain spots and it didn't work in others. I may delete those 2 lines of code if I can't get it to look good. Okay, but t back 50, that wasn't good enough. So let's go back 250. Well, why did it look better that time? It did some little nonsense here. I don't know. Maybe 250 was too far if I'm trying to center it exactly, but you can spend a long time getting these programs to work perfectly. And like I said, you might want to specify that this window is a certain width. Like, okay, I want it to be exactly 800 pixels wide, so I know I need to go back 400, that kind of thing. We could figure out how to do that. And then we'd want to calculate height based on the length, right, of the list. What if we set spacer equal to 0? What if we don't want any space between our bars? Let's see what that looks like. Still seem to have a spacer.
I think in the first call you had, you hard-coded the spacer in.
Yeah, first, FD is 10 instead of
Oh, that should, yeah. Yeah, this is supposed to be spacer right there. T dot FD SP. Make sure you change that line. I'm going to comment that like that to make sure you get that line fixed. Where'd it go? Oh, I haven't hit enter yet. That's why. All right, there it goes. Yeah. Maybe I should have lifted the pin, right? We can send the pin up and put the pin back down when we're drawing on specific things, because that looks kind of lame. Anyways, like I said, we could keep fussing with this until it looked good. What if we wanted to print how tall this was? Well, I think the Hello Little Turtles page I was just looking at has got a bar graph that I'm essentially recreating here. Didn't do it. Phooey. Maybe it's on the next one. There he is. All right, he does some fancier stuff than we did. He fills his bar graph in, and he puts numbers up at the top of it. So how do you do that? Here's how you do the fill. Before you start drawing your rectangle, you call t.begin fill. And when you're done drawing your rectangle, you call t.end fill. We could do that. He put this drawbar in a function. Functions are cool. That way you can just call the function in order to draw stuff. And then how did he write it? He called something called t.write. Let's modify our code to match. We want ours to at least be as good as his. I'm not going to make it a function though, which we should. All of this code should be cut and put into a function, but I'm not going to. But we are going to begin the fill and end the fill. So we want to begin the fill right before we start drawing up, and we want to end the fill when we get all the way back down. So be here before the t dot, whoopsie, t dot, I forget if there's supposed to be an underscore in it or not. And then as soon as we're done drawing all the way back down the bar, t dot end fill. Like a paint program, right? You use a paint bucket. So we just added this line. And we just added that line. Yeah, that's looking cool. I think I'm going to add my spacer back. I don't really like the little turtle triangle being there. Maybe I will hide it. I think you just call t.hide. So maybe above the for loop, t.hide. I think that's how you do it. Oh, and let's change the spacer back. It looked better with some space between the graphs. So I'm changing that SP back to SP is equal to 10. And I'm calling t.hide, hoping that that's the command that hides the little drawing cursor. Nope, has no attribute height. Alrighty. Got to be something clever like set visible true and set visible false and things like that. Okay, excuse me, it's show turtle and hide turtle. Alright, so where I put hide, instead make that t dot hide turtle. Alright, I'm liking my bar graph. Last thing I want to do is put those little words just like on that example page on the Hello Little Turtles thing. Alrighty, so before we draw the top of the bar, that's where I want to write my text. So t dot right, the string version of the height. Why? Because t dot right won't take a number, I don't believe. How do I know that? Because I just saw the example. T dot right, instead of printing a message on the screen, it actually writes it, you know, where the turtle is drawing. Alright, that's kind of cool. Now we could try to position I'm sure that there's a way to position the spacing of it or change the font or things like that, but I like that. We may wind up using this code at some point. I had an assignment cooked up for y'all to use it, and then, like I said, I hid it so that y'all didn't have to do it. I guess the last thing I would like to do is to go ahead and actually make that a function so that we are totally Python awesome. Let's go back to idle, and then I'll need to stop and get this going for everybody who doesn't have it working. I'm going to write a function called drawBar. So define drawBar, and it takes one and very important variable, which is h. All the rest of these are already defined, right? The width is supposed to be constant, and SP is supposed to be constant, and stuff like that. But h varies. H is the height. So drawBar h, and then you see all this stuff underneath the for h in sales? Cut all of that stuff. Highlight everything in the for loop, cut it, and paste it under our function definition. And I'm going to remove some of these extraneous. All right. Hopefully that's clear enough what it's doing. Now it's not going to work anymore because I'm not actually calling the drawBar function. So inside my for loop, I need to do that. DrawBar, passing in h as an argument to fill in that parameter. So now we have a function that you could use. You could copy and paste this into your own code. If I ever asked you to draw a bar graph. Keep doing that. Alrighty. It did the same thing. I wasn't expecting it to do anything different. Last thing to do, let's figure out how to create the window of a certain width so that we know exactly where to position things. Since I went back 250, I'd like for the window to be exactly 500 wide. So I need to Google up what turtle.screen does. Then I'll make a Dropbox and alrighty. Turtle screen Python 3. So when we call screen, we ought to be able to specify the width of it. And of course I'm not seeing that. set width of Turtle Python screen. So you can do canvas width and you can do canvas height. Alrighty, well that's a lot of typing, but we can do that. You do it with the screen size function. It just does not look right. It looks like there ought to be an easier way of doing that. Ah, here we go. If we call turtle.setup 800 by 800, that ought to maybe do it. Let's see if that'll work. So after we make our turtle, we're going to call t.setup, and I want to make it a 500 by 500. I'm not sure that'll be right. Let's just give that a shot. Nope. If I can't get it to work within 5 more seconds, I'm going to give up. Nope. Forget it. Oh, it was WM. Last effort. Apparently that worked. My last effort seemed to have worked. Alright. Right, so it started it right at the edge. Oh, I'm happy enough about that. And like I said, I could calculate the necessary width of these by dividing, the number of elements by the width of the screen. I'd have to fudge it a little bit to take into, take into account the spacers. If I asked you to do this, I'd be really happy if you modified it so that it filled up the window and it looked all super pretty and stuff. But on the other hand, I wouldn't count it off if you just did, something even close to what we got here. So one of the homework assignments I've done in the past is to open a file and then read in all of the text and then display a frequency count. The letter A occurred 70 times, the letter B occurred 25 times, and stuff like that. That's kind of an interesting assignment. Wonder if we'll do that in here or if I'll assign it to y'all. But let's make a Dropbox and then I'll help folks who had syntax errors. And we will be done. All right, guys, there's a Dropbox there.